Welcome to Basketball Cinema, where we revisit the most important and iconic games in NBA history. My name's Jay, and today we're looking at Game 5 of the 2005 Western Final between the Phoenix Suns and San Antonio Spurs. This is part 4 of our massive 10-part series here on the channel, looking at epic performances and playoff losses. And quick trivia question as we get into the video. Do you guys know who won the NBA championship in 2005? 3, 2, 1... Oh, okay, that's enough time. It was the San Antonio Spurs, and I bet a whole bunch of you guys didn't know that, which is actually okay. In my opinion, the 2005 season always sticks out in my mind for reasons that don't include the championship-winning Spurs. Whether it's Steve Nash joining the Phoenix Suns and turning their franchise around, the first season after the messy divorce between Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, the continued emergence of young stars like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, I'm sorry, San Antonians, the Spurs were just too routinely dominant, I guess. So much so that this video actually isn't about them either.
How dare you!
Although prime Tim Duncan had some monstrous moments throughout the 2005 playoffs, as we'll see in this video, today we're looking for a player showing out in a loss to highlight, and that is Mr. Amare Stoudemire. As mentioned moments ago, Steve Nash was signed as a free agent by Phoenix in the summer of 2004, and along with young Stoudemire and a loaded supporting cast, the Suns would win an NBA high 62 games in 04-05, establishing themselves as a contender in the loaded Western Conference from out of nowhere. We'll chat a bit more about the Suns' regular season exploits as the video goes on, but come playoff time, they dusted a weak Memphis Grizzlies squad in a first-round sweep before overcoming a contending Dallas Mavericks unit in 6 games in round 2. When I said earlier that the West was loaded in 2005, that was no joke. Consider that the Suns had to wade past prime Dirk and the Mavs before facing the Spurs smack dab in the heart of their dynasty run. The Spurs, meanwhile, had taken care of prime Ray Allen and the Seattle Sonics in their second round series, as well young Carmelo Anthony and the Nuggets in the first round. There was also a Houston Rockets team led by healthy Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming also floating around. Like a Zack Snyder directed historical epic, the West was Sparta! Despite Amare scoring 36 points a game in the first 4 games of the series, Phoenix found themselves in a 3-1 hold to the Spurs as they returned home for a pivotal Game 5. What kind of damage could Amare and co inflict on the dynasty Spurs? Here, I'll show you. The game began with Manu Ginobili clinically working into the paint where he dropped in a floater. Amare's first attack of the paint was a bit miscalculated as he missed and then was tied up by Ginobili. Nash was also off on his first attempt as he missed on a midi over Duncan. Tony Parker masterfully working a close range pick and roll to find Tim D for the dunk. And for his first hoop of the game, the Suns' young big man hitting a 17-footer courtesy the nice wraparound feed from Steve Nash. We've technically only seen Amare Stoudemire the one time here on Basketball Cinema during the later stages of his career with the New York Knicks getting torn up by Steph Curry. But this right here is young, dominant Amare Stoudemire. This is a different beast. The man known as Stat was drafted 9th overall by the Suns in 2002, straight out of Cypress Creek High School in Orlando. Stoudemire was touted as a raw athletic freak entering the NBA, and that was honestly a super accurate description. He'd win Rookie of the Year in 2003 before averaging 20 points a game as a 21-year-old in 2004. Amare saw his game jump yet another level with the arrival of Steve Nash in the desert, as at the ripe age of just 22 years old, Stoudemire would finish 5th in NBA scoring at 26 points a game. Admittedly too, Amare's game was pretty simple and meshed perfectly with Steve Nash.
It wasn't like I'm going in there and trying to draw fouls or shoot floaters and lay the ball up. I'm attacking the rim, and so every time Nash drop him off, you know, it's like an easy combination between him and I.
Stoudemire would post his gaudy scoring figures while shooting an astounding 56% from the field and 73% from the free throw line. While his rebounding totals and defensive metrics always left a bit to be desired, Amare was such an offensive powerhouse that he'd go on to make 5 All-NBA teams and 6 All-Star games. If I had to compare him to a more recent NBA star, I'd say he shares a lot of similarities with Lob City era Blake Griffin. Neither possessed a super refined skill set, but they were both truly unstoppable forces.
You know, he's a great feet, great athlete, explosive, quick, fast, all those things, agile. Yeah. So for me, it was a pleasure to try to draw the defense and find him in positions where where he can operate in space.
Speaking of agility, in transition, Stoudemire took the drop-off feed and avoided a charge to finish over Duncan. As if enraged by that no call, Timmy D getting his account going in Game 5. A sweeping hook shot with a friendly roll, followed by a midi from just beyond the elbow. Though we're focusing on Amare and the Suns in this video, their matchup in this one, as I've already let the cat out of the bag, was the 2005 NBA champion San Antonio Spurs. And what a freaking roster this was, man. Hall of Famer and arguable top 10 player of all time, Tim Duncan. Future Hall of Famers Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, who were still just 27 and 22 years of age respectively. 8-time all-defensive wing Bruce Bowen, historically clutch perimeter shooters Robert Horry and Brent Barry, all guided by the third winningest coach in NBA history, Greg Popovich. I don't really need to say anything else, do I? Come on. They were loaded, man. Steve Nash, in all his crafty greatness, found his first hoop of the game in the paint, while Stoudemire continued his hot start.
Stoudemire inside and a foul. Tim Duncan called for his first.
He was 6'10" playing center, by the way, but he wasn't scared of anybody. Silky and smooth, Nash was able to carve inside past Tony Parker, a swooping lay-in to give Phoenix a lead. Oh, hey, what's up, Robert Horry? Yeah, you should be a meme, bro. First flush of the game for Stoudemire, coming off a quick feed from Joe Johnson. Stat followed that up by blowing right by Duncan on a line drive dribble, a quick 11 points. Tim Duncan, though his defense was a bit off, wasn't prepared to be completely upstaged, as he gave Amare a taste of his own medicine off the bounce. By the way, I do think it's occasionally forgotten by people like myself, but on paper, the 2005 Suns were probably the most stacked of any roster during the Nash-Suns era. In addition to their two superstars in Nash and Stoudemire, Shawn Marion was an all-star and made All-NBA third team in 05. Quentin Richardson averaged 15 a game and was a premier knockdown three-point shooter, while 23-year-old Joe Johnson was also on this team. Yeah, young ISO Joe. He averaged 17 points a game and shot nearly 50% from threes in 2005. This roster was no joke. Right on cue, Joe Johnson taking a deflected pass in the corner, purely stroking his first triple of the game. Joe had 7 points in the opening frame. The first quarter, though, would limp to a finish after the fiery start. Shawn Marion on the board after an O board, while Tony Parker scoring for the first time as well. Easy lay-in. The second quarter began with a very random Beno Udrih showcase, coming off the bench to hit a corner three, and on the very next possession,
Spurs were almost unbeatable. Udrih, back-to-back threes for Beno Udrih.
Yeah, Mike Breen, that surprised me too. Fortunately for the Suns, it also featured their MVP getting on track, including a tight window pull-up along the baseline over Duncan, as well a little bit deeper as he rose from isolation over Robert Horry. Some more Nash as he pulled back to the top of the arc for a third straight midi. And finally, another Steve special, nearly falling over as he buried another one for two. Phoenix didn't do much with this strong Nash stretch though, as a Tim Duncan and one finish put the Spurs back up 5. We last saw my boy Steve Nash here on the channel as he coached the Brooklyn Nets in a Game 7 loss in the 2021 playoffs. Prior to that, in the playoffs during the Suns run in 2006. The 04-05 season, as I've mentioned a few times, was Nash's first in Suns purple and orange. After adding Nash to the roster, Phoenix would improve their record by a ridiculous 33 wins, with Steve leading the league in assists and winning MVP. I can say completely objectively, without even a hint of bias, that Steve Nash did indeed deserve to win an MVP award, so we won't be discussing it any further. Sound good? It sounds good. Steve's playstyle meshed perfectly with the fast-paced system that Mike D'Antoni wanted to implement, as well with the hard-rolling, elite finishing ability of one Amare Stoudemire.
If he caught the ball and they were trying to recover on a pick and roll, there's zero chance. And if they tried, it was ugly. Man, he was gifted, fun to play with, fun to watch.
Additionally, according to Amare, despite being a scrawny white Canadian with awkwardly long, straggly hair, Steve Nash fit right in with the team off the court too.
Off the court, Steve was one of the homies, man. Steve going to the clubs with us. We've been to clubs, we go to the, to the vibe clubs. You feel what I'm saying? We're like, hold on. Man, Steve, what you doing here, man?
Steve. More two-man game between Nash and Stoudemire as Steve darted a pass to him for the midi, and watch this finish from the MVP, double clutching with his left hand, putting it in over Manu Ginobili to take the lead. More Nash and Amare, with Amare hitting from 18 feet out this time, followed up by, well, another mid-range jumper. He was automatic. What in the world? Some defense too by these Suns from out of nowhere, as Marion and Stoudemire took turns rejecting Duncan near the rim. To close the first half, Nash with one more pull-up from the mid-range, Stoudemire nearly jumping clean over Manu Ginobili, he'd make a pair of free throws, and Tim Duncan putting one more dunk home, 1-point game at the break. So the story of this first half for Phoenix was obviously Amare Stoudemire and Steve Nash, who combined for 39 of their 50 total points. The big fella in white didn't slow down in any way, shape, or form in the second half, getting right involved as he nabbed an O-board before making his way to the free throw line for another pair. Unfortunately, Nash, on the other hand, well, he was bad in the second half, as painful as it is for me to admit that. MVP Steve would miss a makeable midi, then an out-of-control drive to the paint. Super uncharacteristic decision. Seconds later, Nash whistled for a travel as he was once again out of control. Tim Duncan working on the low block as if Stoudemire wasn't even there to defend him. Tony Parker had just a quiet 8 points at this point in the game, but he unleashed a Sugar Ray flurry here in the third. First, an uncontested floater in the paint, followed up by a wide open corner 3-point make, and on the ensuing possession,
one dribbling up. Parker again, back-to-back threes for Parker.
The Suns were literally not guarding the poor shooting Parker from the perimeter, and he finally made them pay for that choice. The Suns' offense had dried up, as Amare was off on the inside attempt. Nash bounced into a fallback midi and came up short. Joe Johnson was forced into a buzzer-beating heave. That coincided with Bruce Bowen hitting a jumper, Bruce Bowen blocking an ISO Joe attempt, and Timmy D making a pair from the line, giving San Antonio a 13-point lead. This Spurs defense, man, it was no joke. Wow. Stoudemire was relentless, however, drawing more contact and getting to the line for a couple more free ones. Joe Johnson seemingly taking a hit as he connected on a transition 3 from the wing. Big shot for the Suns. The reason it was so big was that it seemingly removed the lid from the Spurs basket, as veteran Jimmy Jackson spotted up in the corner, took a feed from Joe Johnson and splashed. Next time down for the Suns,
Leave Duncan open for a dunk? I don't understand that. Jackson again, back-to-back threes.
oh my, did y'all peep that pass from Stoudemire though? Sean Marion finally resurfacing in this game, finishing off a nice entry feed from Steve Nash for 2. But a Manu Ginobili layup before the buzzer did keep the Spurs up 8. After only 4 points in the third quarter, spoiler alert, Amare went bonkers again here in the fourth. First, an aggressive maneuver in the post. One of the few post moves we actually saw from the kid, a hook shot up and over Timmy D. But the wily vet Duncan once again refusing to be upstaged completely.
Jumpers, he's 2 for 2. Duncan. And a foul, Tim Duncan.
Tim up to 27 points in the game after the free throw, and defensively, he was making impact plays as per usual, cleanly rejecting Stoudemire on the drive. Them fundamentals though. Obviously our focus in this video has been the wild exploits of young Amare Stoudemire, but it's necessary we pause and chat just a bit about Tim Duncan. We last saw the big fundamental in his championship-winning dominant performance in the 2003 finals, but here in 2005, we see an even more experienced and refined Timmy D. 04-05 was Duncan's 8th season in the NBA, and he was working on career averages of 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. In his playoff career, those numbers jumped up to 24, 13, and 3. Despite the Suns' unique up-tempo style of play, Tim adjusted to average 27 points, 14 rebounds on 53% shooting in this series, one of his finest showings to date. When looking back on facing the 2-time MVP, Mike D'Antoni regretted not leaning further into the Suns' small ball advantage.
We'd have gone even smaller, or whatever it is to negate how good San Antonio was, and Duncan, we had to negate him elsewhere. We couldn't match up with him and play that style, and I didn't go 100% in because we didn't know back then.
I mean, maybe Mike was right, but now I'm picturing PJ Tucker trying to guard Tim Duncan, and I don't think that would have worked either, Mike. One final note on this Spurs legend is that even during his career, he was viewed as underrated, with Bill Simmons writing in his book of basketball back in 2010, quote, "He lacked Shaq's sense of humor, Kobe's singular intensity, KG's menacing demeanor. His other problem was steadfast consistency. If you keep banging out first-class seasons with none standing out more than any other, who's gonna notice after a while?" I find it so funny that today people will argue Tim Duncan is the most underrated all-time great, while during his career people were arguing he was the most underrated current star. How about we just start rating people properly, okay? Just avoid all this trouble. Duncan vs. Stoudemire really was a heavyweight tilt in this one, as backing up a few moments, watch as Amare stared down Tim before putting down one dribble and blowing past him for the authoritative slam dunk. This time Stat worked on Robert Horry, showing some finesse finesse from the low block again, going over 30 points for his 5th straight game in the playoffs. The fourth quarter became a wasteland at this point, save for a tough finish inside by Beno Udrih, as well a friendly roll on the floater for Joe Johnson. Flash forward to under 6 minutes remaining in the game, Amare facing up from just beyond the free throw line, up to 33 points on the game after knocking it through. And with it now a 5-point game,
This is the closest they've been in the fourth. Ginobili blocked.
yeah, Mike Breen bang call is good, but have you ever tried listening to the legend say blocked? Phoenix was young. Phoenix was seemingly overmatched by the Spurs championship pedigree, but after yet another mid-range jumper from Stoudemire, they were within 3 points here in the fourth. Tim Duncan a timely tip in for the Spurs, and Nash with a miss on a good look from deep, that was killer, as Bruce Bowen connected on another big shot from the corner. Phoenix needed an answer, and who else would they call?
Nash gets inside. Stoudemire.
Honestly, it was getting ridiculous at this point. Look at this dude Amare, standing casually at the free throw line like he doesn't have a care in the world, just staring down Tim Duncan. In a flash, he put down 2 hard dribbles with his left hand, getting cut off by a double team in a less than opportune spot, but as if that were his plan, he stepped through with a pivot foot and rose quickly for the dunk. Such an unconventional method of dominance, but they couldn't stop him. An uncontested lay from Ginobili on the other side, but when the Suns moved back up court,
Jimmy Jackson. Bang! Three-pointer from Jackson.
oh, there's the bang from Mike Breen. Yeah, that was pretty good for my soul, man. Insanely important possession in the game right here, as the Suns forced a Spurs inbounds with 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and it was the great Tim Duncan, calmly guiding in a tip off his own interior miss. Super duper clutch time now for Phoenix, just over a minute remaining, and in desperate need of a bucket. Just watch this.
Stoudemire. Inside, left-handed, banks it. Oh, in and out. And Duncan the rebound. That one was halfway down.
Somehow Stoudemire's shot didn't fall, and upon further inspection, I'm like 99.9% sure Duncan got away with a nuts goaltend right there. I mean, he touched the rim, right? Brutal defensive miscommunication from the Suns as Parker was left open under the rim, making it a 7-point game. Jim Jackson would miss a jumper, but Amare Stoudemire grabbing an outboard, he clearly got away with an offensive foul, just sent Tony Parker flying. Unfortunately, from the free throw line, Stat would miss a crucial freebie. Finally, an impactful moment for the Matrix. As Sean Marion poked the ball free from Ginobili, he'd eventually finish at the rim off the assist from you-know-who. Unfortunately, though a magical Disney Channel comeback for Phoenix, this wasn't. The man from Argentina would calmly make a couple free throws, Steve Nash would miss a heavily contested 3, and that was all she wrote. The San Antonio Spurs finished off the upstart Suns in a tidy 5 games in 2005, with Tim Duncan leading the way, despite getting absolutely torched by 22-year-old Amare Stoudemire all series long. Stat would finish Game 5 with 42 points, 16 rebounds, and 4 blocks. For the series, he averaged 37 points and 10 rebounds per game on 55% shooting. Just another perfect, albeit unfortunate example of an epic performance in a playoff loss. As I pointed out during the trivia portion of this video earlier on, after dispatching the Suns in the conference final, San Antonio Spurs would go on to beat the Detroit Pistons in a grueling 7-game NBA Finals. That's a series that I honestly know like nothing about, and some of you probably feel the same way. Maybe I should make a video on it one day. Anyways, it would end up being the Spurs' 3rd NBA title in just 7 seasons, putting them firmly on the fringes of dynasty territory. In 2007, they'd established that status by winning a 4th ring in 9 seasons, just an unbelievably dominant stretch. Specifically too, a dominant stretch for Duncan and the Spurs over the Nash-Mike D'Antoni Suns, as the Spurs would beat Phoenix again in the 2007 and 2008 playoffs, before beating Nash and D'Antoni one more time in 2013, while the two were a part of the Lakers organization. I mean, it was just bullying at that point. For each game covered here on Basketball Cinema, I'll be giving out 3 awards, beginning with the Clint Hawkeye Barton Award for Most Underrated Performer.
I don't care.
Which goes to Jim Jackson. Yeah, the Suns lost, so his performance wasn't quite impactful enough, but off the Phoenix bench, Jackson would pour in 9 points with 6 rebounds, off a trio of 3-pointers which all came in the second half. Additionally, I think Jim Jackson is outstanding whenever he gets on TNT broadcasts in the current day, so I wanted to give him a shout out. The Rick Dalton Award for most recognizable moment goes to Bill Walton on the broadcast waxing poetic about the strong Spurs draft record.
But the Spurs franchise, which is just outstanding, maybe top of the league, and getting guys at the end of the first round, late in the second, Parker, Udrich, Manu Ginobili, late in the second round, come on.
Remember guys, this was in 2005. Since that time, some other notable Spurs draft W's: Thiago Splitter at 28th overall, George Hill and Goran Dragic 26th and 45th respectively, a little guy by the name of Kawhi Leonard picked 15th and traded for from Indiana, their current core, DeJounte Murray 29th, Derek White 29th, Lonnie Walker 18th, Keldon Johnson 29th. Okay, y'all get the point. Spurs, good at drafting. Have been forever, the end. And finally, the Mark Jackson,
with all due respect,
award for weirdest moment in this game goes to this trailer for the 2005 action comedy film Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, not only did this movie kill at the box office after opening just a week after this game, it was also the movie where Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie started their relationship. That's super tragic because it also marked the end of Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston's relationship. Stupid Brangelina.
Oh, Jen. I really want you to be happy.
And that's it. The San Antonio Spurs beat the Phoenix Suns 101-95 on June 1st, 2005. Amare Stoudemire scored just under half the Suns' total points in this game, but somehow it wasn't enough. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please consider dropping a like down below, and of course, subscribe if you're new, notifications, all that good stuff. Next week is part 5 of our epic performances and playoff losses series. In yet another game featuring this era Phoenix Suns, although with a killer reptile on the other side. But until that one, my name's Jay, and this has been Basketball Cinema. Man, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. That mid-2000s era of the NBA, that's when I got into watching basketball, specifically because of Steve Nash and the Suns, so this one had a little extra importance to me, but even every other team, like that era, just ingrained in my mind, playing NBA Live 06 and all that stuff. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Be sure to subscribe if you're new.